to another edition of the Night Report podcast. I'm your host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again is my co-host, Richie Schneiderite. We have another commitment in the class of 2025, Rutgers Football. Late last night, Rutgers picked up a commitment from Jayden Elijah, who is an offensive lineman from Matawan, New Jersey. He's listed on Rivals at 6'7", 300 pounds. And just from watching his basketball highlights, it looks like he's every bit of that. He looks like a pretty athletic guy. From what we were talking about earlier, he's a bit more on the raw side, but given how many offers he had, I think a lot of schools see a massive amount of potential in this kid. Tell us what Rutgers is getting in Jayden Elijah.
Yeah, so number one, bear with me today. A little under the weather. But yeah, you get a massive offensive lineman. A little bit of a project type because he's still trying to learn the game a little more, figure out a little more technique stuff. Playing at Matawan, he doesn't play against the best competition, so his size just overpowers just about everyone in that short conference. They do play occasionally like out of conference games that are against better comp. They played against Cedar Creek this year in the Battle at the Beach down in Ocean City, New Jersey, and he looks good. It's just he still has to learn a little more. But this is a really good get. He's a kid that had a bunch of offers, like you mentioned, and offensive linemen are so hard to predict in recruiting rankings, especially because you really don't know how a kid's going to translate to the next level, how he's going to pack on or switch from, like for his example, he's 6'7", 300. He's probably going to stay around that range. But to switch some of that body fat to muscle, and sometimes when you pack on an extra 10, 15 pounds, some of these kids, it ends up slowing them down. Some of these kids, it ends up making them a lot stronger. So it's really hard to predict offensive linemen. But I think with the coaching staff they have, with Pat Flaherty, I mean, you kind of just trust him and trust his eyes at this point. The guy's a 40-year veteran. Two-time Super Bowl, one-time Super Bowl champ, two-time Super Bowl champ. So I mean, he knows offensive line, and you saw what he did last year with the same exact unit that they had in 2022. So I mean, you just got to trust him at this point. But this is a really good get. A lot of good offers. You had all the regional offers. You had Maryland, Rutgers, Penn State, Pittsburgh, et cetera, Temple, Georgia. Maryland, Kentucky. I'm going out of region, obviously, but Michigan State. And then Michigan pushed pretty hard before Harbaugh left. I'm not sure how much interest there was afterwards, but this kid's only visited one place, and it's Rutgers. You could see it as a good thing. You could see it as a bad thing. I'm gonna choose to see it as a good thing because in-state kid wanted to stay home. Already kind of knew where he was going. So big win for Charlie Noonan and Scott Vallone, who kind of teamed up to get this one done.
Yeah, no, this is a big time commitment, especially when you look at the offer list. You look at, most high school linemen you're projecting pretty far down. There's very few Anthony Davises of the world, the guys who look college ready in high school. But this is a kid who has all the tools, and you have the structure now in place in Rutgers to develop these guys. I don't think there was a single unit on the team that showed a bigger improvement from 2022 to 2023 than the offensive line. So I'm sure Coach Flaherty is really excited about this commitment and getting his hands on this kid, developing him a bit. Same thing with Jay Butler too, because these linemen tend to have the biggest body transformations in year one. I know the extreme example is Holland Pierce, who lost 100+ pounds in his first full year at Rutgers. But is this kid going to be a tackle, guard? Is there pure tackle?
Pure tackle. Super athlete. Pretty mobile. I think we said it before. He plays basketball. Averages like a double-double. Averages like 16, 14, and 3 blocks a game. Like he's just a super athlete guy. He can move really well at that tackle spot. I think it's like almost certified. I'm trying to think. Yeah, he's just a tackle. I'm looking at it now. He doesn't have that guard build. He's too athletic. I mean, honestly, to play guard, I'm putting him at a tackle. And he's lengthy. He's got those long arms that going to be able to stop those pesky edge rushers, especially in the Big Ten. So, this is. I know he's ranked 28 in state, and I do have to say this because our boards were already complaining about it. I think he's a little underrated for starters, but also the state is probably the most stacked it's been since I started covering recruiting. Like it is stacked this year. It's over 60 prospects for Power 5 offers already. And that's not including the ones that are going to get some in spring. That's not including some that are going to get some in summer camps. So it's a very impressive class so far for New Jersey this year.
Yeah, and kind of, a lot of people talked about how last year was a down year for New Jersey. And this
Mhm.
year, would you say it's one of the best classes in recent memory that you can remember in the state?
Yeah, by far. Like I said, this might be the deepest, maybe not top heavy, but it does have a couple good top prospects. But overall, I mean, this is definitely the deepest class I think like I said, I've covered since I've covered recruiting, and we're looking at 10 plus years now. I think this might be the deepest class I've ever had to cover in the state of New Jersey.
All right, so since we're so early in this class and since it is so deep, let's play a game. We're gonna go through the top 10 in New Jersey, and you're gonna give a rough estimate of where Rutgers sits on these guys, and then after the top 10, just highlight a few guys. We'll talk about guys you think are underrated, and we'll talk about guys that you think Rutgers has a really good shot with outside the top 10. So let's
Yeah.
start off with the top. The number one prospect in the state is Bergen Catholic wide receiver Quincy Porter. He is a high four-star, listed at 6'3", 190. Where do you think Rutgers sits with him?
Uh, Way on the outside. This one's just I could tell you now, it's more than likely not going to happen. Michigan seems to be like the top contender right now, although he did take state visits to Florida State and Florida this past January. Can't say spring because it's snowing out. But yeah, no, it sounds like Michigan, Florida State. A couple SEC schools are trying to get him down for visits as well, but I have a very very hard time seeing him go anywhere in state. I think this one's all SEC slash Big Ten probably battle. More than likely, I'm gonna say Michigan has the best shot right now because he has a really good relationship with Bellamy and Sherrod Moore. But we'll see. I'd have a hard time seeing this one happening for Rutgers.
Sounds like a blue blood. All right.
Yeah, that's the
Moving on.
yeah.
Moving on to the number two prospect in the state, Jameer Joseph. He's a cornerback out of St. Joe's Montvale. He's listed at 6 feet tall, 175.
Mhm.
Where do things stand with him?
A little bit better than where they did with Quincy Porter, but he's still a guy I really kind of see going out of state. He's got every offer in the book. He's a really good cornerback prospect. They're battling for him, so it's a little harder to say just straight up he's going to go out of state. But everyone I keep talking to keeps saying watch out for Georgia, Notre Dame, Tennessee, and Penn State. So kind of keep an eye out on those guys. Uh, it's going to be interesting to see kind of where things go with this one. I'm curious to see where he takes a couple more visits in the future. But yeah, those are four programs I'm really watching out for him.
So another one that Rutgers might not have the best chance with, but I promise there are guys on this list that Rutgers does stand
Yeah,
a very good shot with. And speaking of one, Kamar Archie,
yeah.
linebacker out of the Hun School. He's listed at 6'3", 200 pounds. Where does Rutgers stand with him?
They're actually in a really good spot there. I kind of have this one narrowed down to three schools. I kind of see him going to, and these are all schools that he's visited recently. It's either Rutgers, Penn State, or Michigan. I think he just visited Michigan, I want to say a week ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever the not dead period is, or before the dead period, I should say. But yeah, no, he's one I'm keeping a close eye on because he's visited Rutgers. I want to say, no, without even looking at his profile, I think it's like at least 8 to 9 times already in his recruitment. He's been visiting Rutgers for the past couple years. It's well over 8 or 9. It's like over 10 now. He
Wow.
took one, two, three, four visits to campus last year. One, two, three visits in 2022, three visits in 2021, and most recently on January 31st for I forget what basketball game it was, but yeah, no, this is a kid I'm really keeping a close eye on. I'm intrigued to see who's gonna push because Oklahoma did host them a year ago, and they want to get him out there for another visit. So don't be shocked to see him take an official there. Just took an unofficial to Michigan on the third. Intrigued to see how that defensive staff is not even kind of together yet. So we'll see what happens there. See where his relationships are there with that new staff too. And then Penn State. Penn State's been hosting him quite a bit too. They also got him on campus in January, and they would love to get him as well. So this is I think he's honestly underrated, to be honest with you. I think you could probably move him up to 2 or 1, and I wouldn't even have an issue with it. He's that good of a prospect. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, no, that's really high praise. Next up is another linebacker, DJ McClary. He's out of Snyder High School in Jersey City. So he's at 6'2", 205. He's already committed to Penn State.
Mhm.
He locked in. He's 100% Penn State.
Yeah, he's pretty locked in. One of the big reasons that he committed there in the first place was Khalil Ahmad played a big factor in that one. Now,
Oh,
Manny
okay.
Diaz also played a factor in this one, because he was the linebackers coach there. But they have Tom Allen, and Tom Allen's kind of taken over that spot in that room pretty quickly. So yeah, I don't see this one flipping. There's a potential for him to take a visit to Rutgers down the line,
Mhm.
because I believe they finished second, maybe third. You can argue, because Ohio State's a little bit in that group as well. But it sounds like he's like firmly committed. He loves the Northeast, doesn't want to really go too far from home. I know it's pretty far from home technically if you do the math, but
Yep.
when I say that, I mean he wants to stay in the Northeast region. He doesn't want to go to the Midwest.
Gotcha. Next up is John Forster. He is the all-purpose back out of St. Joe's Montvale as well. He's listed at 5'11", 190. I know this is a guy who's been on campus a lot. Where's Rutgers stand with
Yeah,
him?
I'd say either 1A or 1B. 1B being, it's always hard to count out Brian Brown in New Jersey.
Hmm.
He has two official visits to Rutgers and Syracuse in back-to-back weekends. He hasn't been to Syracuse in a couple years now, and that's the concerning part for this aspect, because Fran Brown is just a really good salesman. So the minute he gets up there, I'm curious to see what the feeling is, especially because it's fresh off a Rutgers visit as well. Now he's been to campus quite a few times. Ironically, I do have to change his main recruiter, because his main recruiter is now his head coach, in Augie Hoffman. But there is no ill will, no bad blood there, so everyone can stop asking me the same question over again when they recruit a St. Joe's kid. But yeah, no, he was on campus back in January, on the 28th for, I think that was the Purdue game. But yeah, no, he's really feeling the love at Rutgers. Demir Shaw's doing a really good job there. We'll just have to wait and see. Now Tennessee's also pushing for an official visit. I don't know what their motive is in the state this year, but they're just, a lot more schools are going to start pushing in the state, especially when they have years like this. So we'll have to wait and see. But I'd say Rutgers is probably like at or near the top for the moment.
Love to hear that. Moving right along, the last four-star currently in the top 10 for New Jersey this year. Jalen Matthews, the tackle from Toms River North High School. He's listed at 6'7", 337 pounds. Where does Rutgers stand with him?
They actually are in a pretty good spot. He's a former Penn State commit. It was one time, I guess all of us had him pegged to go to Georgia. As soon as that decommitment happened, because it was almost immediately following that Georgia offer. But we'll kind of wait and see in this one, because his recruitment's an intriguing one. He does have an NIL agent, so it's a little NIL based. You have to wait and see kind of where things fall elsewhere. But I like Rutgers' chances right now. I think this one's going to be dragged out for quite some time. And he's a kid, like, even if he does commit, I could see him decommitting and going elsewhere too. It's going to be interesting to see where he takes some visits this summer. And if he does make a commitment in the summer, because he's one of those kids that I could see wait until fall also. So I think he was former 100, 150 kid. He's taking a little bit of a dip in the rankings. Yeah, former 100 kid. But he's still a very good prospect. Great size, 6'7", 337. So definitely keep an eye out on him.
Yeah, I remember him getting a really lofty ranking in those first class of 2025 rankings, and he slid all the way out of the top 250, but he's still listed as a four-star.
Yep.
Next up, we have Cameron Miller. He is the athlete from Winslow Township High School. He is listed at 5'11", 165. Talk about where Rutgers stands with him, and also what position are most schools recruiting him at?
He's an interesting one. He's probably going to play DB. But he probably could play receiver now that I think about it, actually. But yeah, most schools got him at DB. He's got a top five right now that he released with actually with me recently. In who was it? Kentucky, Michigan, Rutgers, Syracuse, Wisconsin. Kentucky hosted him most recently on February 3rd. I'd argue they're the favorite right now. I'd say Wisconsin's probably a close second. You could argue Rutgers is a close second as well. I don't see Michigan being all that involved, but again, who knows? I think they still have the same wide receivers coach too, so it doesn't really matter there. But they were recruiting that receiver. But yeah, no, I think this is a Kentucky lean, but I'd keep an eye out on Rutgers and Wisconsin as well.
Moving on. Next up is number 8 in the rankings, Rennick Durilis. He's an athlete at Union High School. He's listed at 5'11", 170. Same question for him. Where's Rutgers stand, and what position do you think he ends up at college level?
Yeah, another kid who just dropped his top five with us. I don't think it's really a top five. I think it's more of a top two. It's Tennessee or Rutgers. He plans on taking official visits to both. I think Rutgers is in the driver's seat here, for as they should be for most Union kids. It's almost like a pipeline school. Actually, I shouldn't say almost. It is a pipeline school. Minus one defensive back or one per recruit. The entire recruiting since we've been tracking it since 2002, really. Um, that actually ended up going elsewhere, and that's Davison Igbinosin, who went to Ole Miss, obviously. But no, I think Renick Durilis is going to be a Rutgers commit sooner rather than later. Again, visited campus in January. Defensive back, probably could play receiver. He's athletic enough, but he will be a DB at the next level, and I think he'll be a DB with the Scarlet Knights at the next level. I already did a future cast and everything, so
Love to
lock
hear
it in.
that. Number 9 on the list is Darren Akinengbong. He's a defensive end from Hillside High School. He's listed at 6'5", 240.
Hmm.
We talked about him previously when his teammate committed to Rutgers. Where does Rutgers stand with him?
Yeah, he's he's gonna be a tough one. It's gonna be a real tough one. Now, his teammate Talibi Kaba did commit recently. They're good friends. Obviously, he's gonna push him, but it's going to be a really tough haul here. This kid has everyone after him. Not his offers are like sometimes you look at offer list and it's like they're old. They don't really count. These are all legitimate offers. He got Georgia. I want to say a couple months ago. He got Ohio State like a couple weeks ago. Got Florida a couple weeks ago. Notre Dame a couple weeks ago. Just visited Georgia on the third. They really want him. They're making a push for him. He's another one that's probably way too underrated. I think we have to give him a bump to that 4-star status. It's a little deceiving that he doesn't have one, but he has every offer in the book right now. He's only going to keep continuing to add more. I think he's only got 16 at the moment, but he's going to have a lot more when it's all said and done. But I see him going to like SEC territory probably or a big name. So we'll see like college blue blood, I guess you want to call that.
Right, yeah, I hope he ends up at Rutgers because he's definitely one of the more high upside guys in the
Oh yeah,
class, but
big time.
going to be a battle, it sounds like. The last player in the top 10 for the state of New Jersey in class of 2025 is Michael Thomas, the wide receiver out of Donovan Catholic. He's listed at 6'1", 180. He's another 183. Sorry, he's another
Mhm.
guy I know he's taking a ton of visits to campus. Where does Rutgers stand with him?
Sayreville, New Jersey native, so that's kind of where that comes into play. He is dead playing down at Donovan Catholic, although there seems to be like a mass exodus kind of going on down there.
Hmm.
I heard the football program might be in a little trouble, so we'll see what happens in that aspect. So and see what we actually see where he goes to school. But yeah, no, Rutgers is in a really good spot here. From what I've been told, is they won mom over already, so mom's kind of helping out Rutgers, I guess, a little bit on the side. But that's kind of 60,
It's a
70% of
huge
the
part of
battle.
it, yeah.
Yeah, you win mom over, you kind of win the most of the time, I should say, you win the battle. But yeah, no, he's getting pushed by a couple schools. I think he was at Syracuse 2 weekends ago. They're going to be a pain in the neck, without a doubt, in most of these recruitments for New Jersey kids. But I think Rutgers is the leader here, and I was very close to submitting a future cast, and I'm still very close to it. I haven't done it yet. I need to get like a little bit more of a confirmation from someone, and then I'll probably go ahead and submit one. But I think Rutgers is in a great spot here.
Love to hear that. So just to kind of recap, sounds like Rutgers has a really good chance with Kamar Archie, John Forster, Jalen Matthews, Renick Durilis, and Michael Thomas. So that half of the top 10,
Yeah.
Rutgers has a good to great shot with. So you love to see stuff like that, especially in a loaded year. So you've gone through the top 10. Who outside the top 10 in the top 30 would you say Rutgers has a really good shot with that we haven't talked about?
This is in no particular order. Actually, it's in our rankings order right now. Halim Muhammad, defensive tackle, visited campus recently. He's a Pennsylvania native from Doylestown, which isn't like too deep into Pennsylvania, but it's close enough to Jersey.
Yeah, right
Yeah,
across
so
the river.
yeah, so keep an eye on him. Sinead DeGraffenwright, if you follow us on social media, you know Shiano took the helicopter down to Atlantic City recently to go visit him. He's been to campus a couple times. I'm trying to look through the rest of this list. Braswell Thomas is one I'm keeping an eye on. Lower Cape May has been to campus a bunch. The top 30 is deceiving too because, like I said, this is a deep class. There's really not any other names that are standing out to me right now in the top 30. But if you go to like just our recruiting database and just start looking through guys, there's a bunch of different names out there. Trying to think right now. Liam Thorpe got an offer, but it sounds like he's Stanford bound, but he's unranked. Like there's a lot of unranked kids still too. I do think Cole Breeler. Cole Breeler's one I'd keep an eye on. He was on campus recently, a defensive tackle from the Hun School. It's going to be interesting because I don't think they go too Jersey heavy this year, but it's a little bit heavier in Jersey this year than most years or most recent years. But they're still going to go hit those other recruiting grounds. They're going to go hit the North Carolina, the New York area. I'm sure they'll tap into Pennsylvania again eventually. I don't think they had any Pennsylvania guys last year. Now that I think about it. But yeah, like Michael Carroll, the 4-star out of Pennsylvania, is one to keep an eye on. Rowan Byrne, 4-star in New York, is another name they're keeping an eye on. Lyric Samuel, 3-star out of New York. So I do think there's only a couple in New Jersey they're really targeting heavily, and then it's going to probably flip flop to other areas that they're pretty known as good recruiters for.
Yeah, right. They didn't land a single kid out of Pennsylvania last year. I mean, they only landed 3 New Jersey kids last year, or 4 New Jersey kids
Yeah,
last year.
and I
Very
think it might
Florida
be like
heavy,
5.
Midwest heavy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, think about it like this. I mean, if you remember last year, we didn't think the Lumen brothers were going to commit. We didn't think Raynor
Yeah.
Andrews was going to commit. They're 3 of your best commits right there. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, they only landed 2 Pennsylvania kids in the class of 23 too. Or they actually, sorry, they only landed 1 PA kid in the class of 23. That was Devon Fuse. Um, isn't his brother in this class?
I think his brother's a 2020. Ooh, you're a good question. He is 2025, so keep an eye on him, I
Okay.
guess, too.
Yeah, because he
Um,
was a guy who had super early offers. I remember as soon as Davon committed, there was rumblings that like, oh, is this a play at his brother? And
mhm.
when you're trying to, that's not the case, obviously. But when people are saying that, that just goes to show, especially for an interior defender to talk about,
Yeah,
his brother like that far in advance. He's a really high level recruit, even if his
yeah.
ranking might not indicate that.
6'3", 250 defensive tackle in the future. So, I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, it's a good kid. Definitely keep an eye on him.
Um, so the last question I have for you about the class of 25 in Jersey is, if you could pick out a few names that you think are underranked in terms of the current rankings, who are some guys that immediately jump out to you?
Let's see. Underranked. Jayden Elijah, who we just talked about, I think should be higher than 28. Michael Troutman, he's a really good offensive lineman. Doesn't have the size of a true Big Ten lineman, but he's probably gonna play center at the next level. But he's one I'd keep a close eye on. Jaden Lofton intrigues me at Somerville. He doesn't really play that good competition out there, but kind of a 3-4 defensive end. I think he's a really good one. He's another one that Tennessee's pushing to get on a visit. Um, let's see. Jay Sean Reed doesn't get as much love as he should. I think he's a really good kid. Nolan James, I've seen a couple times at running back. I think he won Under Armour running back MVP last year as a sophomore. So I don't know if he sticks with Boston College because he's added a couple Power 5 offers since then. And then Sinead DeGraffenreich. That kid plays not really that good a competition at all down in Atlantic City, but he is a really, really talented athlete. I've gotten to see him a couple times, both in person at one of his games, and then also what do you call it, at Rutgers 7-on-7 at Rutgers for an elite camp. It also gives me a nice chance to just go to Atlantic City afterwards too, so it's nice. But yeah, no, he's a really good prospect. Unfortunately, you can't write off your gambling losses because that would be clutch.
That's a damn shame. It's a
But
business expense. Come on.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I had to go down there. Like it's right there. What am I supposed to do? But yeah, no, he's a kid that I actually am close to putting a future cast in for him too as well. So
Wow.
keep an eye out there.
All right, so loaded class. There'll be much more to come on this as the commitments continue to roll in because, right now is, where June used to be in the old calendar, where these guys are
Yeah,
trying to lock up their spots because class
crazy.
sizes are smaller. The windows for when these guys get recruited have been moved up dramatically. So stay tuned because we could see a few more of these guys pop any moment because this kind of came out of nowhere. You were saying that
Yeah.
you you were hearing that not any no commitments were on the horizon, and then a couple hours later this happened. So
Yep. This is this is a dead period too, so it's like kids are starting to notice like, hey, this guy committed. Oh, shit, like, there goes another spot. I need to
Yep.
commit ASAP. So it's kind of where it's at right now. It's almost like you said, June, July ish. It's dead period. They're just trying to get in as many visits as they can, or get as many commitments as they can. Sorry.
Yep. Um, so let's pivot to the actual football team now. We had reported last week all about the Andy Aurich situation.
Mm-hmm.
He has officially been named the next head coach of Harvard football. So
Yep.
that tight end role is now officially open. Are
Mm-hmm.
you hearing anything else regarding that, or are they playing things really close to the vest?
As always, Shiano plays it really close to vest. But I'd be a little shocked if it isn't a guy that has ties to someone on staff because
Yep.
that's almost everyone on his current staff has some type of tie to the staff. Even like Mark Orphy, who technically doesn't have a tie, also coached alongside Chase Dodd. So it's like
Yep.
there is a tie there in some aspect, but being the tight ends coach, being that it's kind of Kirk Shiraka's room on offense, I'd assume it's probably one of those guys that has ties to him. We listed them all already. I'm not going to go through them again, but if you want to check them out, it's on our hot board. Didn't I add someone new recently? I feel like I did. I forget. But there's also one name that I'm kind of intrigued by, and it's Jeff Moore. So Jeff Moore is the tight ends coach at UMass. He was the Loomis, I think it was Loomis Chaff's, Loomis Chaff's, Loomis Chaff School head coach from 2019 to 2021. St. Thomas More head coach up in Connecticut as well from 2017 to 2018. He is the tight end coach slash recruiting coordinator. This was a similar move to like what Rutgers tried with Augie Hoffman and Nunzio Campanelli, but it's actually worked for UMass pretty well. UMass obviously not a recruiting hotbed by any means, but this guy knew a lot of people throughout the New England area. Very well connected. He's their tight ends coach and recruiting coordinator currently. I would keep an eye on him because you kind of want a recruiter at that tight end spot, and this kind of hits it perfectly. Actually, it looks like he actually moved back to Tabor Academy, which is another New England area school. So, I if he wants to get back into college, maybe, but just another name to keep an eye on. And then who else did we had someone else on this hot board that I just pointed out the other day, and I can't remember. Oh, Boston College former tight ends coach is technically available in Rob Chudzinski. He was an OC in NFL, special assistant to the head coach from 2020 to 2022 at Boston College, and then got bumped up to associate head coach this past season.
It's
Um,
actually the head coach of the Cleveland Browns in 2013 as well. He got,
yeah,
that was the start of I think they had like three
their
coaches in
downfall.
3 years. And I
Yeah.
think he was the middle guy.
So,
Um,
I mean, hey, keep an eye out on him. It's potential. A lot of NFL ties. I know he's spoken highly about at Boston College, and they actually wanted him to get the job if they were going to stay in house. So,
mhm.
um, just a guy. You never know. And I think he was. What else was he? He was connected to Shiano somehow. Tight ends.
He
Tight
was,
ends at Miami.
yeah, yep.
Yeah, he was on Shiano or alongside Shiano at Miami at the University of Miami. Which again, it's a tie you really don't see all that often.
Yep.
So,
All right, so
that's all I
stay
got.
tuned because that news could drop at any time. It would surprise me if it got stretched out much longer, to be honest,
Yeah,
because you want to have that guy in place for the spring, ideally. And spring practice, I mean, that starts up in less than a month. So,
yeah, it's crazy.
yeah, the season moves by fast. Let's pivot to basketball. Rutgers has a big time game on Thursday night. They're playing against Northwestern at home. This is
Hmm.
a game that Rutgers just kind of needs to hold home court the rest of the season to keep their postseason hopes alive.
Yeah.
And Rutgers is kind of getting an opponent that's limping in a bit. Everybody knows Boo Booey. Obviously, he's the heart and soul of that team, the leading scorer. I think he's been there for 5 or 6 years. He's kind of like the current Geo Baker of the Big Ten, the guy who just
Yeah.
seemingly keeps coming back. But they're likely going to be without one of their best players in Ty Berry. He's their starting two guard. He shoots 43% from beyond
Hmm.
the arc on high volume. They have a lot of good shooters, actually. They have four guys on their team that shoot above 40%.
Okay.
Three of them are high volume, too, in Boo Booey. in Ryan Langborg and Ty Berry. So you they're shooting almost 40% as a team from beyond the arc. Just
Yeah.
wild stuff. But anyway, they're also only 1-5 in Big Ten play on the road this year. So they're clearly a better team on their own court than on the road, as most teams are. I just wanted to kind of put some of that information out there. I expect Rutgers to be favored in this game. If you would have said that a week ago, I would have said no way. But the ESPN projection has Rutgers as a 55% favorite in this one. So just stay tuned, because if Rutgers is a plus favorite, or if Rutgers is on the money line is plus money at all, you just got to hammer that. I think Rutgers is really going to show up on Thursday. Not that it's a guaranteed win, but I don't think it'll be by any means easy for Northwestern to take this one home.
Yeah,
Um,
it's another team that it's just they've had a weird Big Ten schedule. They beat some really good teams, but then they lose to like Minnesota and they lose to Nebraska, but then they beat the hell out of Illinois, and it's like, okay, what the hell, what's going on? Like the Big Ten is
yeah,
just weird this year. It's not very good from head to toe, but we'll wait and see what happens. They also lost to Chicago State earlier in the year, who's
yeah,
290. That's like a Lafayette-esque type loss. Like that's a
yeah.
bad one. So I don't know. I think they have a good shot. I think they should win. Because it's home court. That home court advantage is just unmatched in college basketball. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens Thursday.
Yep. We'll have a post game pod on that one. If they win, maybe Thursday night. If they lose, probably
Yeah.
Friday morning. But that is the podcast that we're going to give away the gnome on. So if you haven't already, if you'd like
Forgot
to
about that.
gnome the gnome
Yeah,
sweepstakes,
it's out of my reach right now. But you guys know what it
yeah.
is.
If you guys don't know what it is, if you're listening for the first time in a few weeks, welcome back. But Richie has a Rutgers branded lawn gnome that he's giving away to one
No, I can't
lucky
reach.
listener. In order to qualify for the contest, you need to drop a comment below in this video mentioning the gnome, or more
Mm-hmm.
preferably, give us a 5-star review on your favorite podcasting platform and mention the gnome in the review. We've had a ton of them come in,
Mm-hmm.
so we really thank each and every one of you who have already done that. Um, but moving on from the gnome talk, got a couple other Rutgers sports we want to mention. Rutgers wrestling went on the road last night to
Jeez.
Penn State. They lost 35-3. Not unexpected. I think the line on that one was Rutgers plus 37 or 36 and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So while they did cover, and it's even weird to think of betting lines for college wrestling,
Yeah.
Rutgers underperformed. The opening match against Dean Peterson, uh, I forget who he wrestled, but he was
Braden Davis.
Braden Davis, who's one of the top 5 wrestlers in the country at 125.
Mm-hmm.
A very controversial takedown, no takedown situation at the end of the match in the third period. Scott Goodell, gets his trusted brick out to go, challenge, and the
Yeah.
referee says we don't have video review. Which, if there was a single venue in the entire country, which I would expect to have all the bells and whistles for wrestling, it would be Penn State. I don't know how you don't have video review at the. I know that they were wrestling at the VJC last night. That is unacceptable. That is insane that they don't
Yeah.
have video review inside the basketball arena for wrestling. I think Penn State should get heavily fined for this. This is total crap that you don't have video review at a Penn State home match. That is total bullshit. Not that it
Yeah.
would have
I
flipped the
don't.
match at all, but I cannot believe that happened.
I don't get it. Bryce Jordan's not old enough to not have video review. In 1996, it was built. Had a renovation in 2022 that was $98 million.
Yep.
If I'm reading this correct, or no, I read that wrong. That was in 2022 dollars. Whatever. Besides the point, it's their newer arena. I don't get it. You have to have video review of some kind. Bryce Jordan, Rec Hall's old. Like it gets to the point where I know personally a lot of Penn State fans are pissed because the press conferences they don't have a mic that goes around. They don't have anything. You can't hear anything in there. So that's why they don't do post game pressers there.
Wow.
It's like this is the basketball arena. There has to be a video camera on replay somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Just I don't get it. And then Rutgers went on to have a ton of upsets against them.
Yeah.
Uh, Penn State was sitting a lot of their starters for whatever reason.
I don't like that wrestling does. Well, a lot of wrestling teams do that shit, and I don't get it.
Yeah, they're trying to preserve seeding for different tournaments, so I get it in one sense, and I don't in another. Rutgers was also without Brian Saldano, without John Poznansky, and without Mitch
Yep.
Moore last night. So Rutgers was undermanned, and they were facing a lot of backups who were jumping up a weight, and they
Hmm.
beat us everywhere except for 133. So it was not a stellar performance for them. Just a kind of season of underperforming overall. Not that you expect to go in there and beat
Yeah.
Penn State, but they had the opportunity to win 3 or 4 bouts that they let slip through their hands. Um,
Yeah. It's a shame.
Rutgers baseball season starts this week as well.
Ooh, yes, it does.
They typically start on the road for almost a month, and I think that's what they're doing. Do you know where their first the home series is, or where their first series is this year?
Yeah, they're down in South Carolina. I think it's the Rock Hill Invitational. It's called.
Okay.
They will be taking on Winthrop in a 3-game series starting Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Or starting Friday, we'll have it Saturday and Sunday. I don't think any of those, Rock Hill, South Carolina, I don't think any of them are on TV or even like able to stream or whatever. But then they go out to, shouldn't say go out, they go down back to Virginia, play Old Dominion for three-game series, and then they're at St. Joe's. So they really they don't play at home until March 5th. So you got some time until a midweek against Wagner on March 5th. But 3 p.m. game, that's a nice one. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I don't think this game's on TV at all though. So just kind of not really much you could do other than watch, I guess, the game cast or whatever they have. So we'll see. Should be an interesting season though.
Yeah, another sport off to the races. Kind of covered quite a bit here. Is there anything else that we didn't hit on that you wanted to mention?
Let's see. No, just waiting on this tight ends coach hire. We're 1 month closer to Dylan Harper signing officially. That, I mean,
Yeah, assuming he hasn't
significant-ish.
already done it under the table. So
Yeah, so no, there's not really anything else. It's just kind of waiting for. I didn't expect this commitment, so it's a good commitment for Rutgers, a very good commitment for Rutgers, and then we'll just wait and see what they're going to do next. I would assume next the news is going to be about the tight ends coach, but I don't know if we'll get it this week or not. So our next pod's probably going to be Thursday night, Friday morning ish. We'll see.
all right. Well, we thank you once again for listening. We appreciate each and every one of you for regularly tuning in. But for me and Richie, this has been another edition of the Night Report podcast. Signing off.